Hello everyone, welcome to a video on Code Tech and Tutorials. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be looking at DaVinci Resolve 17. DaVinci Resolve is video editing software and effect software, somewhat touted as the alongside with Adobe Premiere. It's like about as good as Adobe Premiere, I guess you would say. However, I have more experience with DaVinci Resolve, not a whole lot with Adobe Premiere because I tend to use free stuff if I can. And DaVinci Resolve does have a free version, whereas Adobe Premiere does not. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience and go through the very basics of how you actually use this if you're a complete beginner and don't have any idea what you're doing. So this will be a tutorial on how to edit video with Resolve from the standpoint of a complete beginner. So if you already know Resolve and are pretty good at it, this is probably going to be a lot of information you already know. If you have no idea what it is, then cool. Here we go. Now you can see they have a website here, and they have all kinds of things like training and studio and stuff. We're not really going to worry about anything other than recording with our own computer. Now this is semi-professional software, so you can do very high quality edits with Resolve. And that's what makes it so great. That's what makes it better than things like Blender as a video editor. I've done a lot of tutorials on that, but this is, in my opinion, a good next step, but there are a few requirements. Now, with all these effects and the powerhouse that DaVinci Resolve seems to be, it does require quite a bit of processing power. So it's good to know that that's a thing. And by a lot, I do mean mostly your GPU. Of course, your CPU, your RAM, you always need a lot of that kind of stuff for video editing. But I've noticed when I edit with Resolve, if I have a pretty long video with a lot of effects on my laptop, which doesn't have a whole lot of GPU memory, I'll often get this message that says out of GPU memory. So just know that this relies pretty heavily on a good graphics card from what I understand. And if you don't have one, you're going to have a rough time getting this program going. So it does require a bit of a newer computer with decent specs, including the video card. So that's one of the things about this. I don't know if Adobe's like that. I've never used Adobe. But here is the download, and I'm not going to go through the download, but I'll explain it super quick in case people get stuck. When you download this, it downloads as a compressed file. So you have to uncompress that file and then run the installer, and that's it. If you're stuck on that, that's really a different thing than using Resolve, but it shouldn't be too hard. So let's get into it. Oh my goodness, look at all this stuff. And there's tons of accessories and things you can hook up, consoles you can hook up to do additional cool editing. I'm just going to be using a regular keyboard and mouse, but there's lots of these editing keyboards and stuff that, one day maybe I'll get to. But right now, I'm just using DaVinci Resolve 17 free. So if you want to follow along, that's what it's going to be. So once you have DaVinci Resolve installed, you'll have an icon probably on your desktop or wherever you installed it, or maybe it's in your start menu. That's kind of up to you. But basically, you want to get installed and be able to launch Resolve, which will look like this. There's also a project server. I have never really used this, so I'm going to kind of ignore that one. We're just going to look at the actual program. So all you do is open it. It is going to take a bit of time as it loads up, looks for your control surfaces, checks everything that's hooked up to your computer, and all that stuff. So it's pretty normal for this to take a bit as it loads up all its resources. And once it finishes launches, oh my God, what did I just say? Once it finishes launching, you'll see this server thing with databases. And you see it says DaVinci Resolve 16 here. I think I'm actually using 16 on this computer. So, let me get 17 installed. It's basically the same. I just, I said I was doing a tutorial on 17. Let me go actually get 17. Be right back. And real quick, just a note, 17 is in beta. 16 is the official release right now. So if you want the most stable version, you should probably use 16, and they're pretty close. But we're going to be talking about 17. If you're using 16, you'll probably be able to follow along. Things just might be in different spaces. You're probably also going to have a more stable experience if you're on 16. But I haven't really noticed any issues with 17. So let me go get 17. Okay, so back on their webpage, just going to go ahead and grab 17. Now you see there's just plain old Resolve 17 free. That's the one we're going to be using. Studio, fine, costs money. And if you're professional doing, big stuff, you probably want the studio version. But if you're just playing around and testing things out, then 17 should be fine. And here we go. Here's the downloads. And you can see it works for Mac, Windows, and Linux, which is awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the Windows DaVinci Resolve 17 beta. And I guess I can walk through this now. I think I'm already registered. I'm going to skip over this. Okay, got all that filled out with just some basic information. It doesn't make you make an account or anything. It just asks who you are, basically. And I don't know if there's a way around that exactly, but I feel like I filled it out more than once. And anytime you actually click update from within the program, you don't have to fill that out again, so that's a little weird. But yeah, as you can see, it's downloading over here in the bottom left corner. And I'm going to let that finish, and I'll come back to you guys. Okay, so it did finish downloading, and I just popped it open. I'm using this program called pzip to extract files. You might use WinRAR or just the Windows default one or something. Whatever's fine. And you can just double click it from here and it will auto extract to a temp area and start the install. Which I don't necessarily recommend. What I usually do instead is I usually just grab this file and save it to someplace on my hard drive. So I'm just going to hit extract, go to, this is fine, downloads. That's one of my big physical drives. So I'm going to save this installer over there. And all this does is extract it. This isn't the install right here. So however you extract it, it's fine. Basically, we just want to get it out of this compressed file. You don't know what compressed files are for and their purpose. It's kind of off topic, but very quickly I will say it's so DaVinci doesn't have to use so many resources from all these people downloading it, because they can make the file a little smaller to download, and then you can manually unzip it and take it from there. Alright, so let me go to where I saved that. And it looks like it's just right over here on the E drive, downloads. There's going to be a whole bunch of junk in here. We're just looking for the DaVinci Resolve. There it is. So that's what we're going to double click. And apparently it's not showing the icon, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to double click it. And we can close this window. And it's going to extract yet again. This is like double compressed, I guess. And it's going to go through the installation process. Now you may have already done this. Feel free to skip forward. I'll try to put timestamps all over this video so you can get to parts that are relevant for you. But I just want to cover all the bases for very new people. And here we are. You see you get the Blackmagic Raw Player, DaVinci Control Panels, and DaVinci Resolve. Now I think the main thing you need here is DaVinci Resolve, but if you have space, you might as well install everything and let it do its thing. This is going to take a while. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, I'll be back. All right, it's looking pretty well and good. I got things popping up asking me questions, so I'm just going to accept the terms, of course, and the installation area. I'm not sure if I want it here. This is generally the default area, just your program files, but if you want it on another drive, you can do that. I'm just going to keep it where it was. Program files, Blackmagic Design, DaVinci Resolve. That should be okay for me. And I think this is going to be it. There's not really a whole lot to this. But once it's done, we should get a new icon over here. I don't know if it's going to replace 16 or not. I haven't actually had them both installed on a computer before version 16 and 17 beta, so we'll find out. It's chugging away here. Looks like it's finalizing. And it did go ahead and remove all my 16 shortcuts, so I think it's replacing 16. So it might be the case that you can only have one installed at a time, or if you choose the same install location as 16, it will overwrite it. Good to know, because a lot of times people will want both versions. They'll want, 16 for their stable, guaranteed functioning stuff because it's a release, and then they'll want 17 to play around and test the new features. But I'm not super worried about that, as I'm not a professional video editor or anything like that. I just want 17 functional. I've used it before. I know how to render stuff. I know how to generally get videos done. And that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, so it did finish here, and it gave us a slightly different icon. It's a little more squarish than the old one. And we're just going to hit finish here. Let it do its thing, and boom, we should be able to now just open DaVinci Resolve. So let's go ahead, and here we go. It's going to take a minute to load up again. So while this is loading up, I can show you just a few things about videos. So video formats matter. DaVinci Resolve doesn't accept all types, and these MKV files that you see here, which are the default when you're recording with OBS or something, it seems to default to these MKV files. Now, I think you can change this in OBS to like MP4s, which you might want to do if you're going to be using this a lot, because you'll find that you can't just drag in these MKV files. So that's something that's sort of interesting and a bit of a monkey wrench. But it's not that big of a deal, because what you can do is if you have incompatible files or files of different frame rates and stuff, and I've said this a bunch in my video tutorials about Blender, is you can use a program called Handbrake to turn all your files into a common frame rate and a common file type. And I think by default, if you just drop a file in here and convert it, it turns it into like a 1080 okay, we got to pop up here. It turns it into a 1080 MP4. So if your videos, if you find that you can't import them or Resolve doesn't like them, just convert them with Handbrake first and then go back to Resolve and use those. So just so you know, if you got those incompatible weird files and you're getting all kinds of weird errors, you need to sync them all as the same type, or I say sync them all, but convert them all with Handbrake to a type you can actually use. So like a lot of raw formats from cameras, you'll need to do this too. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a professional video editor. I'm kind of approaching this from like a computer science programmer perspective, and so I generally can figure out the technical stuff, but I'm no artistry of mastery on video editing, just so you're aware. I'm not sure if that was a proper sentence even. Okay, so I did finish this. It gets a message about upgrading your existing database. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I think it's the right choice because I was using 16 and I think it needs to do something new. And there we go. Okay, so it does have all my stuff from DaVinci 16. It did import it. So as you can see, I have some saved projects here. So when you first open it and it finishes loading, you generally get this thing, and you can see you can change the size of those, no big deal. This is just your projects. We're just going to do a new project. So I'm going to go down here, click new project. And we're going to give it a name. I'll just give it YouTube Demo 1 because this is my first video on Resolve. And there we go. It pops open and you get this whole interface. Now I'm going to take a few minutes and just walk through this interface, talk a little bit about it. Now down at the bottom, this is one of the most important things to kind of get a hang of, I guess. This is the section or like your editing workflow. So most of the time when you're editing a video, you're going to be sitting on cut and edit. For me personally, I sit and edit for a really long time after I get my videos imported. But to get them imported at first, you want to go over to this first tab, Media. And it gives you this screen, and you can navigate through your hard drives and bring in files. So let me figure out something to bring in, and I'll show you some more. Okay, so we're going to look for a video. Now, like I was saying, you can use these to go find your video, or you can just drag in from your file explorer, but you do need to be in this media section, and you either drag it, I think you drag it right here. So I'm going to go to my mass drive here. So I have one to just save lots of stuff. And I have an area called Handbrake where I generally convert things and save the initial conversion here and then drag them out from here. Just my style of doing things. You can do it your own way, however you want, but the point is, everything I have in my recording is an MKV, so I can't just demo any of these easily, because if I drag them in, it's just gonna nope. It's gonna be like nope. So I've got some things I previously converted to an MP4, and that's what I'm going to use as the sample. Let's just take a look at this. It's an M4V, but close enough. So this type of file should work. So we're just going to drag it here. And it asks if we want to change the project frame rate to match what we're dragging in. And you want to go ahead and do this usually. And there we go. Now, this particular clip isn't anything to do with my channel. It's just, I think, a recorded match of playing some MTG Arena, which is just a video game of Magic the Gathering. Yeah, you may have heard of it. It's pretty fun. I like Magic. I played a lot. So that's the clip I got here. So this is what I'm going to be using for the sample. Now you can see it's in here. There's little special features of DaVinci, like you can kind of scroll through it right here just by moving your mouse. There's a lot of little cool bonus features. Now, once you have the things in that you want, you don't really need to do a whole lot else here. You just kind of, drag in the media you like from your project files. Now, a lot of people like organize their files in special ways. They make a special folder. They put everything for their project in it. I don't tend to do that because I'm just like winging it. Like once I get the video done and rendered, I never go back and open it again because, that's my style. But most professional editors will like section off their projects, drag all these particular files into an organized folder structure before opening this project. But we're not going to worry about that. We're going to skip over all that. So all we do next is we want to make a timeline, because just dragging the media in here doesn't really do anything. So if we go like over to cut, we see our clips up here, but there's no timeline down here, and same with edit, no timeline down here. So all you do is you take this file when you're in this cut and you just drag it down here and it'll create a new timeline. And as you can see, it shows as a resource. So these timelines use your resources and they're like a new resource. That's just the way DaVinci works. But now we have this whole area down here for cutting. And right here, we have like a quick view. As you can see, it goes to an hour and 40 minutes. Oh, that was a long video. Wow. And this initial cut is sort of made to just quickly scroll through and make cuts and just like get your initial, you want to cut the parts you don't want and that sort of thing. And you'll find some tools to do that. There's some special tools here like boring detector to see, I think you can set this, but it basically does a little scan, sees if you've got anything go on for longer than your time that says, this is boring. You should probably do some edits. That's just like a helper thing. You don't really need to do that. There's split clips. There's some of this stuff. I haven't used a ton of this, but some of this is decent initial effects. You'll have to play around with it some. If I start diving into all of these, it'll take me forever. But generally what I do here is, well, sometimes I just skip this entirely. But if I know for sure there's like giant sections I want to cut out, I'll go in here and you can just like, I think you right click, you get the play header to where you want, you right click on it, and you can see there's a cut and there's a split keep left and a split keep right. So this is kind of tricky. Like if you go, like if I do this, I can undo, so it's not a big deal. Oh, is it doing it? Hold on, I think I got to cut first. So if I do a cut, and then I click here again, oh, that's a select. Okay, select left, select right. So it just has some basic tools, and there's hotkeys for these. I don't know all the hotkeys yet, so I do a lot of clicking, but you know, you can go look at them. There's probably somewhere up here where you can view them all, or you can download like a little cheat sheet or something. But they do vary depending on what section you're in. So we got a cut there, and let's say we just want to get rid of it. So what you can do is you can grab these edges once you make a cut. So let's make it like another cut right here. I'm just doing sample cuts. I don't mean anything. I'm going to cut there. So now we have this section, and say we want to cut off a little bit of this. We just drag it, and it automatically pulls back the clip after it. So this cut section is kind of designed to make it super easy. And if I want to cut off, say, from here to here, I can drag on this side and pull some of it. And you can see it's like playing, or you can hear it's like playing the audio too. So it tries to help you with playing a little bit of the audio. It's pretty good at doing that sort of thing. So that's generally what you do. You go through this initially, you cut out all the parts you don't like, and you can use this at the bottom to scroll and advance. Click somewhere, do some cuts, drag it in and out to kind of like make it better for how you want. And you can kind of do this for your first initial pass. I think that this is supposed to be for like your first pass. Oh, and another weird thing, actually I said this wrong earlier, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but it said like right here it says like 1 hour 29 minutes. I'm not sure why the 1 is in front. It should be 0. Because this is like a 40-minute video, not a 1 hour and 40. But I don't know why it always does that. So if someone wants to explain that in the comments, that would help. But that always confuses me because I pop in my video and I think it's an hour longer than it is, like I already said. But it's not. I don't know why this says hour and 40 minutes. It's only 40 minutes. It's just a weird thing. I guess they start at 1. Their arrays start at 1 for DaVinci. They didn't get the programming memo where things start at 0. But anyway, we're going to move on. That's basically all I want to show you for this section, other than these are kind of cool. If you've got this semi-finalized, like you don't think you're going to do any more edits over a cut, you can drag in one of these dissolve things. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, there we go. We just click. I guess you just click it, and it does it near the nearest cut. So it's trying to help you. So you can kind of make some quick fade cuts here too while you're in this. So say I do another cut here, maybe I pull off some of that, and then I want it to do some other thing like this smooth cut. You just click it and it applies it over your latest cut, I think. So you can kind of get your initial pass going here of just like, you know, going through your video. You probably watch it more closely than I'm doing. I'm not watching it particularly that closely because it's just, you know, kind of a demo. But here we go. We can do this sort of thing. That's just a cut. That's dissolve. That's smooth cut. Okay. So you can play around with these, see how you like them. There's this close-up feature. I'll show you a couple more of them. These are all totally optional. Like we have this little section here, and if I click the section and then click close-up, it automatically puts an effect. Well, I wanted to put this effect. This didn't put it where I expected. So it put it after my cut for some reason. I'm not entirely sure how all these features will work yet. Some of them seem a little weird to me. Like, for example, I just put this close-up. So I don't know what it's going to do exactly, but let's take a look. It looks like it just auto zooms in on that particular section and then zooms back out. And you can change it how you want. If you move it to there, it does a little snap. So you can get it to snap there. So you can kind of put these initial little things over it. Of some just basic cuts. Ripple overwrite, append. Alright, we're going to move on from cut because once you get through your first pass and you got your basic cuts, you know, you removed all your bad pieces basically, then you go to edit. And sometimes, just to be perfectly honest, I completely skip this cut section and go straight to edit because you can do all the cut stuff over here on edit as well, plus a little bit more. It's just a little messier of a looking interface. There's more tools, more effects you can do. Okay, so we've got this looking half decent. Now, once you're in edit, you get this special feature of this zoom bar here. I love this thing because you can minus it all the way and see, the length of your entire thing. Or you can zoom way in if you're doing some precise edits. So you'll kind of flip around between this as you go. Like if you're doing some meticulous little effect, you want to zoom way in and get a look at what you're doing. Now, once you're in this section, there are some new options. You have snapping. Snapping will basically snap to this cursor here or snap to ends. So you can turn it off by pressing the N hotkey. I use this all the time. So if I turn it off, do a cut. Now cutting is a little different here too. You can't just right click and cut anymore. You have to do that. You get different options here in the edit. So what you do is you click this thing, the blade mode, or press B. So you press B, get it on the blade mode, and you just click somewhere and it cuts. So you can do this all over the place very fast, and you can control Z or undo if you mess them up. So I'll just make a few here real quick. And as you can see, the video up here is updating as I scroll along so you can kind of see what you're working with. Super cool feature. All right, so with snapping on, and I want to get off this blade cut. So let's go over to selection mode, which is A. There's also trim mode and dynamic mode. I pretty much stick with blade and selection mode like 90% of the time, but professional might do things different. So what you do, you go to the selection mode. If you turn snapping on, it's going to like snap to your cursor when you get close to it. So it's going to be hard to see, it's not even snapping off, it just kind of sticks. If you don't want it to do that, and it also does the same thing to the next area where it can, reduce your dead space, I guess you would call it. And this thing is also snapping. So if you don't want it to do that and you have your own precise edits, you can turn that off by just pressing N, and it won't snap to things anymore. Because sometimes that snapping messes you up if you just want to cut like 2 frames and it keeps snapping to the edge or something. All right, very good. So I'll show you a few other clips. The whole snapping and cutting is like the bread and butter of this section for me anyway. I'm usually doing all sorts of little precise things here. Then I'll click this clip and say, hey, maybe I want to effect on just this clip here. So once you have a clip selected, you can go over here to your toolbox. And if you don't see it, I believe you just got to click this little thing here, or one of these. You'll probably see it. But there's tabs up here. And these tabs up here affect this left side. So there's your media pool. If you want to drag more stuff in here, you can. There's your effects library. Then you have a toolbox, open effects, audio effects. You have a bunch of stuff here. Generally, I stick with these in video transitions. You can drag these over cuts that are next to each other. For example, if we drag these next to each other, you can see since I don't have snapping, it's like automatically kind of overlapping it and doing some weird stuff. So maybe I want snapping here. So it snaps and doesn't do an overlap. I'm not sure what link selection is. I'd never used that. But we'll get into that maybe later. If this gets like a lot of views and people want to see more, I can dig in and give some more advanced tutorials. But we're just trying to stick with the basics of like some cutting and some basic effects and then rendering it for YouTube. That's all this is. All right. So maybe that's something I should have said right at the beginning. Maybe I did. This has been going on for almost 30 minutes, so I'm kind of losing track a little bit. I'm just going to keep going, and we're going to get to a resolution here. So effects. I was talking about effects. You can drag these video transitions onto any seam like this. So if I just grab, for example, cross to dissolve and drag it and put it right here, now it's going to do a cross to dissolve right at that transition. So if I just hit play here, and we'll get a look at it. And as you can see, you couldn't even really tell there because it crossed, but there was no action. If there's like actually action or you're going to a completely different scene, you will notice. But if it's like the same, if you're dissolving, crossfading to the same thing, you can't even tell. But if I was going to like, I don't know, maybe some B-roll or something, you would see the crossfade. So there's a lot of different ones here that are kind of cool. Let me get rid of this so you can select it and just press the delete key. But you can check out these other ones like this one here, dip to color resolve. You'll see, just watch what happens here. You'll see it like fades in and out. I use that one a lot. That one's a fun one. Let's see, there's smooth cut. Let's see what that one looks like. So you can just play around with all these by just dragging them in and taking a look. Can't even tell there because it's this is a pretty bad example of a cut here because there's just no change, you know. I just kind of picked a random area. This whole video is like this, you know, it's just kind of a slow-paced magic game. So, but your mileage will vary depending on what you're doing. So that's video transitions. You just drag them in over these cuts and go from there. And there's other special stuff, a bunch of special stuff down here. Now, what you'll see as you try to use these, eventually you're going to get something like, let's see, let me see if I can get it to happen. I don't know what happened there. That was like a weird rotate. But some of these, you'll try to use them and it'll say something like, you're using the free version, you can't use this effect and stuff like that. These all seem to work, but once you get into these open FXs, a lot of these seem like they're locked behind a paywall. That one in particular isn't, but eventually if you're playing around with all these, eventually you're going to run into something where it's like, nope, you're not allowed to do that. There it is. You have reached a limitation with DaVinci and you need to buy it for $2.99. So I'll say not yet because we're doing a free version. And as you see, it just puts this thing over your effect. You get the lens flare, but you also get this whole little add thing. So the free version doesn't allow you to do everything without a little bit of hindrance. It does try to encourage you to buy the real one. Anyway, I'm going to undo this effect. But just know that that's a thing. Not all this stuff works unless you buy the full version. So the free is a little bit limited, but you do get all the core stuff. You just don't get all the super fancy stuff for free. Okay, so what else might we want to do? We could look at audio transitions. I don't use those too much. I usually just manually crossfade. Titles are pretty useful. You basically just get some text of some sort and you can say whatever you want. So the properties for whatever you've selected over here on the top right under inspector. You can click different things here. I'm going to keep it inspector. Oh, there's mixer too. We'll get to that a little later. I'm not going to talk about the mixer yet, but I will before the end of this. So this inspector here is whatever you've selected. It's some properties. And you'll see some tabs up here. Like this one only has video option. There's no effects or audio transition. But if you click on a different one, you'll see it has different stuff. Like this one has audio attached to it. So you can go to audio and do stuff with the audio. If there are effects, you can do that, etc., etc. So this is kind of how you adjust the properties of whatever you've selected. We're going to adjust the properties of this text a little bit. And we'll just give this like MTG Arena. We'll just say that as a text thing. And now I'm going to just back this up. And maybe I want this title at the very beginning, for example. You can just drag it and move it. And if you're in here and you want to move this thing, you can hold middle click. But if you're on a laptop or something with no middle click, you can just drag this. And I'm just going to zoom way out. And this is actually hard to do because I can't grab it easily. I'm not doing this in a conventional way. I'm just like messing around, you know. So I don't know if I should have created this at the beginning rather than having to drag it now. But I guess I can do it like this. Just grab it. There it goes. So now at the very beginning, it'll say MTG Arena. It's not a very good looking thing, but you can do these up. You can do all kinds of stuff with your text. As you can see, there's fonts, sizes, spacing, positions, anchors. So you can make it look fancy as you want. There's offset of drop shadow. I like drop shadow a lot. It helps see what's going on. Change the color of it. You can just do all sorts of stuff. There's no real limitations here. And there's also settings, some transform stuff. And, you know, that's the text. There's a bunch of different ones here. There's some special ones that work. There's some that are hidden behind paywall. But there's generally a lot of little text and titles you can drag around. And another cool thing, I'll just go ahead and show you. You can do this on any video clips or anything, is when you hover over one of these, you see these little things at the edge, top left, top right. These are the fade in, fade out. So you can customize the fade in, fade out by dragging this. And it tells you the time you're working with as well. Like that's about a 1 second fade, about a 1 second fade here. So now you'll see if I hit play here, you'll see that text fade in. There it goes. And there's my kid talking. All right. And there it fades out. All right. So You can do the same thing with video or text. You can use these little things. So if you notice on the edge of any particular split, you'll see that. So you can do a little custom fade in, fade out if you want, real quick, just by grabbing those and be like, whoop. So that's kind of a cool thing. All right, let's move on from those. There's a lot you can play around with there. Now we have some generators. I don't tend to use these too much. I think some people like to use these, you know, as effect, like, oh, I messed up, sound or whatever. So you can drag these in and do stuff with them and get that, you know, they just have some of these built in. So kind of a cool thing to play around with if you want. And then they got some additional effects. I haven't used these a ton. I think most of these are paywalled anyway. Yeah, they are. Okay. And then you got open effects. I haven't used them. We're getting some weird things. So yeah, when you're not using the full version, it yells at you a lot. Anytime you try to do something, it's just like, nope. Okay, this is the audio, so it doesn't let you do that on the video. Now the audio one is this green one here. You can click on it. You can do stuff with it, but it's like locked to the video. Now I'm not going to get into much about that. Basically what you do is you go over here to audio and you can adjust it how you want, like, you know, with this. So if you got a background music track, you can put that in there too. I'll show you that real quick. Okay, so here we go. I've got a bunch of music in my downloads, just stuff I've used in the past, some random stuff, random effects, all kinds of stuff. So what you do is you basically just drag this in. If you try to drag it in like here, it looks like it goes ahead and imports it, but you can go back to media or cut and drag it in there. And generally what you want to do is you want to drag it into its own track. Because if you drag it right here, you see it overwrites the track from the audio. So if you don't want it to overwrite your audio, you got to drag it below or above maybe. No, it's got to be below and start a new one. So then both will play now two different audio clips. So what you want to do here is you can click on one of these. Like, okay, so this right here is my music. And I don't want it to be full volume right here because, you know, there's talking. You won't be able to hear me talking, for example. I'll just hit play real quick. All right, well, that's enough of that. It's way too loud and the other one's way too quiet. So what you can do is you can adjust the volume right here. But you don't necessarily have to do it this way. There's some options. Since we have two different tracks, what we can do is we can go over to this Fairlight Audio tab and we'll get a new interface. And we'll see here that we have our first audio track right here, left and right, and our other one, that's our music, audio 2, a left and right. So you can start playing around with just the audio here, and you've got these dials over here on the bottom right. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. I'm going to keep it real simple. So basically, if you want your music to be real low, you can take this master volume and just lower it. Because if you bring, like, you know, a bunch of different music clips and it goes to one after the other, but they're all on audio 2, you can just lower them all at once by this master. So if I put this to like -20 some and I raise my voice, which is on audio 1, up a little bit, I might get something that's more appropriate for background music. Let's just have a listen here with -23 on the audio music and +3 on my voice. So I'm going to hit play here somewhere. A little better. My voice still sounds really quiet, so you can just like keep cranking your voice if it's way too quiet and things like that. So that's the audio with the master controls. That's generally something you want to do last, I think. So I'm going to go back over to edit. And, you know, we kind of got those configured. Now, that means I won't have to mess with this audio on each individual track. Oops, I've got this one at -12. That might explain why it was so quiet. Put it back to 0. So that, you know, that might be okay. Usually it's like -20 some on the background audio, but your experience and results may vary. And you can just put effects on your audio with this kind of stuff, I guess. So you just drag it and drop it over it if you want something. I haven't messed with these a ton, but these can be pretty cool. They can add a lot to your video to match your effects or whatever. So it's totally up to your own creativity, but it is there. And once you've made all your cuts and made all your edits and gotten to the end and you got your video how you like, how you want, and, you know, Once you're happy with it and you want to render it, what you do next is you go to deliver. Now, yes, I am skipping over fusion and I'm skipping over color. Those are a little more advanced. You're welcome to play around with them if you want, but I just don't think they're necessary for a beginner. You can kind of guess what they do. But anyway, you go to deliver, and this is how you render. So we've got our whole thing here. Up here at the top left is what we want to look at mainly, because we have our render settings, and we have an add to render queue button. So once you hit this add to render queue button, it's going to put it over here on the right, and then you click render all. So you can queue up multiple renders, but generally what I do is if I'm making the video for YouTube, is I just click on YouTube here, give it a location for where I want it to render to. Typically for me, this is in this drive called LMAS or the E drive, and then under rendered, and then save. And then you change your file name title right here to what you want it to be. So I might call it MTG draft 1 or whatever it is. And just by initially clicking this YouTube 1080p, it sets this stuff pretty well how you want it. It does have options to upload directly to YouTube. I don't use that. I manually upload because I don't necessarily know what channel I want it to go to. So you'd have to set up your account through here if you want to do this upload directly. I don't use that, but just clicking this, getting the auto settings is super simple and puts it in a way that will definitely work. But you can custom if you know what you're doing and you're super good at this stuff and you know what all these settings are. You can just custom it up. I'm just not doing that. Okay, let me change this again. MTG draft 1 is what I would call this, for example. So once everything's fine there, I'll just hit add to render queue. And then when I'm ready to render, I just hit render all. Now this will take a little bit of time. It is notably faster than Blender. If you're a little familiar with my Blender video editing, you'll find that editing with DaVinci is a little bit faster in the long run, and it's faster at rendering. It's probably because this is actually made for video editing. Blender's still great, don't get me wrong. I actually still use a mix of both for my videos, but I tend to use Resolve a lot more these days because it's just got more features, easier to use features, and stuff like that. So anyway, once I hit this render all and it finishes, what you'll find next is if you go to this location, you'll find your file, and you can go review it and upload it and whatever you want to do. And that's basically it. So I'm just going to hit a quick render all. And it tells you time remaining. It's got like 18 minutes. But I have a lot of stuff going on, like I'm recording with OBS. It would probably go a little faster if I wasn't doing so much. But that's going to, yeah, you know, all the edits you made, all the work you've done, it's going to push it to one file like you want it. I'm going to go ahead and stop this because I don't actually want to finish that. And just for sake of example, we'll go into the file folder, go to that drive, go to rendered, and there it is right there. It never finished. It's you know, only 40 megabytes. But your finished thing will show up there and you can do what you want from it from there. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Let me know if you want to see any other special features. I can kind of make a highlight on any certain features about Resolve if there's a lot of requests, like maybe you want to see more details about editing, cutting, that's not a word. So, you know, go back to edit, make some changes, do another draft, play around with some of these effects and stuff. Yeah, that's basically it. Oh, I hit a weird audio thing there. All right, I just want to say thanks for watching. Special shout out to my patrons for helping me keep going. If you want to help this channel a little further, of course, just watching the video helps a lot, and hitting like helps a lot for the algorithm and all that stuff. But also, if you want to just further support, there is a Patreon. I'll link it down below. For just a couple bucks, you can really help me keep going with this channel. It does help a lot, as it you know, it just means a lot. I don't know how to handle this Patreon, to be honest. I want to do special stuff at some point, but for now, I think I'm just going to keep it as a general support. I'm not going to do a ton. I will definitely, you know, if you're a patron, I'll be as quick as I can to answer your questions, or a lot quicker than the regular comments, at least. So if you want advanced help with some project of your own, or if you want me to review something, you can sign up for Patreon, jump on the Discord, go to the Ask for Review channel, and I'll review something of yours. So I'm happy to help out a little bit if you want to be a patron. But thank you so much, everybody, for watching, hanging out. Keep coding, keep working on your creative stuff. It's all we have in this world sometimes. All right. Love you guys. Peace out. See you in the next episode. Matt from Code, Tech, and Tutorials, over and out.